Hello, welcome to this tutorial about making word maps. Here's an example of a word map you can see. Sorry if it's a bit out of focus, but hopefully you can read that. Word maps are really helpful when teaching new vocabulary. That's particularly true for children who need some extra support with learning words, so children with language difficulties, or perhaps children who are at an early stage of learning English as another language. And you can see we've got information about the sound structure of the word and a picture and the meaning and the word in a sentence. The aim is to teach the whole word, which is so important to teach kind of all, not just the meaning, but how the word sounds as well, how it's used in a sentence. So in the centre is the written word with a picture. That helps to make it multi-sensory. I just cut this out of a word map from Twinkle. You can often find pictures to glue in online. Aim to have the child to glue the word in or to draw the picture themselves. The more involved children are in creating word maps, the better. Sometimes you might have vocabulary that's more abstract, so not as easy to picture as a word like a sword. Maybe you're trying to work on words like compare or experiment. So in that case, talk with the child or the children you're working with about what image would help them remember the word best, and then they can draw that. Honestly, the drawings don't have to be good. It's about the process. It's about having a visual reminder of the word. It's not an art exam. So we have the word and a picture, an image in the centre, then add the sound structure. So what the word begins with, how many syllables it has, if applicable, a common word that rhymes with it. So here we've got sword, rhymes with board. You could have other words as well, Ford, Lord, but best to choose a word that the child will be familiar with already. That just helps with retrieval. And it's important to do the sound structure first, because having the sound structure, understanding the word, saying the word, understanding what it sounds like, gives the child something to then hook the meaning onto. Now, a couple of things might occur. So perhaps you might have a word where the first sound is not, when you write it, is not how you'd say it. It's like in this example with night. Obviously, we have a silent K at the beginning. Now, it's up to you. You could not worry about that. You could just explain to the child that when we say it, it's night. The first sound is a N, it's night. But when we write it, we have to put this K. You could just explain that difference. Or, like in this example, you could show it so that when we say it in a speech bubble, it's an N. But when we write it, it's a K. So it's up to you, but that will happen quite often in English, so just think about how you want to manage that. Sometimes you might also find that there just isn't a word that rhymes. I couldn't really think of a good word to rhyme with turret. Sometimes people will try and make up a word then, but to be honest, I think that would just confuse the child and can add to the cognitive load of what they're having to learn. So in those instances, if I can't think of a good word or perhaps a short phrase that rhymes with the word, then I would just explain I couldn't think of anything to rhyme with that one. So then after adding the sound structure, it's time to add the meaning. You can see I'm using red and green here as my colours. Anyone who's done an Elkland course and seen word maps demonstrated on that, they'll be familiar with that. Elkland teach the mnemonic of red for what you said, green for what you mean. So red for the sound structure, green for the meaning. So thinking about the meaning, try and add just keywords or short phrases relating to the meaning. Try and use simple words that the child is likely to know already, or words that are also used within that topic. It can be difficult sometimes to think of simple definitions, simple words, so I tend to cheat and look up the definition in a child's dictionary and magpie words from there. In some cases, for sure, there will be relevant words to add about the meaning that the child doesn't yet know or is in the process of knowing. So perhaps here they might not know weapon and night. That's okay. So just explain those words as you go, and where you can, add extra context. So context and examples are so important. So for this example here, lovely, you can mime having a sword fight. You can do that with small world play figures. You can look a video up online and see that. So you can be talking there about how sword is a weapon and it's being used to attack, and you can bring those words in to that more richer, that contextual learning that you're going to be doing. The more examples, the more context you can provide, the better. And then finally, I always write a sentence using the word, or better yet, the child can too if they're fluent at writing. If they're not fluent yet at writing, then it's better for you to write the word for them, because otherwise they're going to be so focused on the act of writing, the handwriting, the pencil control, the spelling, that they won't have any sort of cognitive processing left for actually understanding the meaning. But in either case, whether you're writing it or the child's writing it, talk about the sentence, plan the sentence together, and look for a sentence that again adds context, adds meaning. So for example, if I'd written a sentence like, I had a sword, that doesn't help at all. That doesn't give any information about a sword. It could be anything. But the sentence, the two knights fought with their swords and shields in battle, that starts to give context. And if you talk about that, if you're explaining that sentence, you're acting that sentence out, then you're also helping to develop the child's understanding of words like knight and fought and battle and shields, whilst working on the core word of sword. Also, by putting the word into a sentence, you're giving the child a sense of how that word is used grammatically, what kind of function it has with a sentence. You don't have to talk with them about whether it's a verb, a noun, an adjective, but putting it into sentences, practicing using the word in sentences, will just help that child understand how it functions grammatically. So that's what a word map is. It's very simple, easy to make. The key point is that it's the act of creating the word map with the child that adds most value. So these aren't things to make in advance and just give generic copies to the child. That really won't help at all. Make them with the child or with a pair or trio of children. That's absolutely fine. That's great. And talk about the word as they make the map. Explain the word map as you create it. Look for opportunities to act it out. Look for examples online. Give lots of examples and context for the word. Just add that meaning and that context where you can. So once it's done, once it's created, can you bin it? No. Children need to revisit words that have been taught again and again until they're established, particularly children with language difficulties. We know that revisiting, revising words is crucial for word retention. So if you don't do that, all that work you've done may well just be lost. And we also know that children with language difficulties generally need to hear, to see, to experience words many more times than children without language needs, about 4 times as many. So it's really important to keep revisiting vocabulary that you've taught. And because it's so important to keep revising words, revisiting words, that's why I like to create word maps on pieces of card like this for children who are a bit older and their motor skills, their drawing skills, their writing skills might be a bit better. They could use blank postcards. These ones are slightly bigger than postcards. You can see I've just hole punched them so they can be treasury tagged together. I find having them on separate cards much more useful than being in a book, because it gives you much more flexibility to them revised words. So for example, you could pick one word at a time and take turns to think of an example of when that word might be used. You could put 2 words together, so maybe turret and knight, and ask the child or the children you're working with to explain the connection, think about how those words go together. You could put lots of words out and again ask the child or the children or work with them to create a story that uses all those words. You can move them around into the right order. You could do a written word to cards matching. So each child might have a pair of words that they can't show, they hold to themselves, and you've got the written words face down here. Take turns to pick a written word, see if you've got a match, see who finds the most matches. Children could choose a word each, hold it to themselves so that the other children can't see, and describe the words for the other, describe their word for the other children to guess what it is. So you can see there's lots of opportunities. You could even do a Kim's game where you've got the words out and we'll take one away without the child looking, and they have to see if they can identify which word's missing and then tell you what the word was and also what it means. So you've got plenty of opportunities, if they're like this, to play games, to do different activities with the words, and as you do that, then the child will be hearing the words, using the words, talking about them, understanding them. You can be using context, giving examples, and that way it's much more likely that the words will be retained. Okay, I hope that's been helpful. Please do let me know any comments, and I will be back with another video soon. Thank you for watching.